Chapter 27. Robin. Hog-tying an invisible alien was a problem, but one that I was determined to solve. No going home to a lifetime of shame for me. Not when I had new friends ready to help. Several of the turtledillos who had crowded into the diner claimed to have seen other meteors fall. 2 sounded close. They were almost certainly escape pods like mine, and with any luck, they would hold a criminal bug alien as well as my friends. I really hoped Zephyr and Dragon were okay. No way to know without charging out into the storm to look. "I am fairly sure," Beetle said wryly, crossing her top arms, "that the crowd of busybodies approached your meteor first because they know I'm a softy about trespassing." Guilty smiles told me she was right. Sunrise, standing beside her, laughed quietly. Beetle continued, "Both of those other 2 hit Sparkthorn Land. You folks willing to risk getting your windows shot out for a good cause?" A roar of unanimous approval drowned out the rainstorm. Beetle nodded as if she'd expected nothing less. "Right then, back to the truck dance we go. Let's call in all the outliers. They know the way." So back into the rain we went. I was ushered into Moondark's truck again. She greeted me with a smile and took off hard on the heels of Beetle and Sunrise. I held on and put serious thought into how I would fold myself below window level if the promised shooting started. At least the rain fell consistently, with no dangers from above that I could spot. The way these folks drove made me glad to be a passenger. I could barely see the ground through the lashing rain, and that was when we stayed on proper roads. We didn't stay there for long. Beetle, leading the pack, jumped the fence first. Moondark laughed when she took a hard left, hitting the controls to make the hover truck bounce high enough to clear the simple wooden barrier. Once airborne, we sailed over it, then tipped nose first down a hill, onto an undulating plain of stringy plants. I grasped the window frame with both hands. I wouldn't fall over, I promised myself, nor would I betray any undignified yelps of startlement. No matter how much the current ride resembled something from the most old-fashioned of roller coasters. There appeared to be rippling hills under the wild grass, but it was hard to tell. We weren't at much of a vantage point. Other hover cars fanned out on either side, making trails through what was probably crops. Lightning flashed overhead. "What happens if this truck is hit by lightning?" I asked over the thundering rain. "Nothing," Moondark shouted back. "As long as the windows are closed anyway. It's insulated." I didn't ask for specifics. I would have liked some since my experience with lightning was limited, and the windows didn't look particularly lightning-proof, but I held my tongue. "There," Moondark said, pointing with one arm while she drove with the others. I could just barely make out a round shape on a hilltop under nighttime clouds. Other cars careened toward it with their headlights joining to make a wash of glaring raindrops. I squinted. Moondark drove faster. I braced my knees against the dashboard and tried to breathe evenly. When we got closer, I saw that it was indeed one of the escape pods, one that had come to the kind of landing you might expect from someone who actually knew how to steer it. No trail of destruction. It had landed on the hill and stayed there. The hatch sat wide open in the rain. Not a great sign, but the rain seemed consistent at least. Beetle reached it first, circled the low hill, then parked her hover car and jumped out. Sunrise went with her while Moondark idled, and the rest of the crowd circled around us. Both of the farmers had thrown on what looked like chainmail raincoats that trailed on the ground behind them. Lightning-proofing? I didn't ask, too concerned with what might be inside the pod. "I don't think they can reach the door," I said to Moondark. "I should get out. Are those coats in case of lightning? I don't suppose you have one with a fighting chance of fitting me?" Of course not. She gave me the biggest one she had, and I shuffled it on in a hurry. The fact that it was loose enough for large individuals was the only reason I could get my arms through. The extra sleeves drooped at my sides, hard to tell from inside the truck, but if I crouched, the trailing bit should reach the ground and conduct any strikes away from me, theoretically. "Don't forget to hood," Moondark said as I reached for the door. "Right, yes." I pulled it up, distracted by the sight of Beetle trying to give Sunrise a boost out in the rain. Other rain-coated locals struggled through the grass with the same idea. None of them were going to reach it. Somebody was definitely going to fall down the hill. "Fashionable!" Moondark told me with the hint of a snicker. I'm sure, I said. Good thing that hood was wider than average, too. Turtledillo necks are longer and their heads smaller than mine. A snug fit. And the waterproof lining was already making me sweat. All right, let's give it a try. I opened the door, and rain soaked my legs immediately. The coat barely reached my waist with the back piece trailing behind. My work pants were meant to withstand various animal messes while on the job, but they weren't built for this. I gritted my teeth and stepped out into the downpour. The coattail didn't reach the ground. Dignity comes second to survival, I decided. With rain bucketing down around me, I dropped to all fours and scrambled up the hill, grabbing handfuls of grass to pull me up. No lightning struck. Everything smelled like dirt and ozone. As expected, none of the turtledillos had managed to reach the rim of the giant pod. Even I was going to need a leg up. Thankfully, there were more than enough people ready to volunteer. They boosted. Lightning kept its distance. I leaned against the wet surface while rain splashed into my face, and I stretched to reach the rim. It was a challenge to pull myself up and peek over the edge. Nothing but a deep puddle of water among all the glowing electronics. Impressive tech, really, to still be working under these conditions. But it couldn't tell me where the passengers had gone. Maybe if I knew how to work the controls, but my own crash landing was testament to my lack of skills in that area. I slid back down. It's empty, I shouted. Where's the other one? Back into the truck to drip all over Moondark's seats. She just laughed some more, enjoying the adventure. She drove like a maniac in a new direction. Good thing somebody was paying attention to where we were in this rainstorm, because I had no idea. I was busy worrying about whether the invisible ship had picked up the passengers from both pods. The sky grew a bit lighter ahead. It must have been the edge of the storm. A nice thought, despite the dangers. But the bright area was far enough away that we didn't get to appreciate it. When the caravan slowed again, I squinted at what looked like several other cars parked and waiting. They turned headlights our way and wrecked the visibility. "Whoa," said Moondark. "Get low." "Sparkthorns?" I asked, hugging my knees. "Might lose a window." "Here we go," I muttered. This was uncomfortable. I tugged the raincoat hood as high as it would go and listened. Outside, I heard shouting that I couldn't make out over the rain. Was the rain letting up a bit? Maybe. Yes. I risked a peek over the dashboard since we hadn't been shot at yet. Rain and headlights still obscured everything, but it wasn't quite as extreme. I spotted the escape pod behind the landowner's cars. It had left a trail down the side of one hill and halfway up the next, rolling much like mine had. Its door was still closed. Zephyr and Dragon? I thought, afire with worry. I'd been lucky to get away with minor bruises when I landed. That kind of tumble could easily break a neck, especially with two people bouncing around in there. I wanted to rush over and bang on the thing until it opened, but not with trigger-happy locals aiming my way in low visibility. Beetle and a few others shouted at the turtledillos in the other cars, not making much headway. From what snatches of conversation I caught, the Sparkthorns thought that the crowd was here to steal their glory. This thing had fallen from the sky on their land, after all. Beetle's claim that they needed to capture the alien inside for the sake of interstellar commerce wasn't getting her very far. I was going to have to get out. "Will they shoot me if I stand up?" I asked Moondark. Before she could answer, the hatch on the escape pod opened and something flashed away. Much too fast to be Zephyr or Dragon. Everybody started shouting. The bug-like shape disappeared into the rain. Moondark gunned the engine in the direction we'd seen it last, while Beetle and the others did the same, and the landowners threatened them all with weapons I couldn't see. Maybe some of the cars stayed back. This one sure didn't. Moondark launched us off a hill like a hoverboarder showing off for her friends and landed cackling. Other cars' headlights made it nearly impossible to see. Then I caught a flash of scrambling bug alien on a hilltop with sunnier land in the background. "Over there!" I said, just as the Sparkthorns shot the engine out from under us. We both shrieked as the truck spun, grinding down the hill with tall grass whipping at every window. When it finally slid to a stop, the rain still pounded, and headlights of other vehicles flashed in all directions. I heard the bangs of more gunfire. "It went that way," Moondark declared, unbuckling her harness with 2 hands and thrusting a coil of rope at me. Let's get it! We aren't going to get shot? I asked. Nah, they wouldn't hit someone on foot, she told me. That might actually kill a body. Come on! I unbuckled my own harness and opened the door cautiously. The rain was lessening, and the ruckus was out of sight behind the hill we'd slid down. Proper sunlight warmed my shoulders, no sign of any invisible ships. There was, however, a spindly shape fighting through the tall grass in the distance. There! I shouted to Moondark, and took off. Woo boy, that grass was hard to run in. It was even harder for Moondark, with her stubby little turtledillo legs, but at least she had natural armor to shield her from getting slapped by the grass. I just had to deal with it. The chainmail hoodie was no help. By the time we reached full sunlight, well, I did. Moondark was still a ways behind me. The smuggler bug was far ahead. He had reached level ground. She? They? It? It is insulting. Pronouns are annoying. Anyways, the alien was colored in shiny black with pink highlights, and was more than a match for the double wooden fence that marked another territory change. All the grass grew on this side. Bare dirt that hadn't been touched by the rain lay on the other. I could joke about the grass being greener, I grumbled to myself, but dang it, I am jealous. That looks so much easier to run on. Still fighting through the grass, I watched the bug alien leap from one row of fence to the other, then down and away like a shot. When I got close, the 2 fences suddenly made sense. A deep irrigation trench ran between them, full to the brim with speeding water. I definitely preferred jumping to wading, assuming I could jump that far. Aw, crap on a cracker. I could probably clear that distance. Probably. Nothing to do but try. I pushed the coil of rope high on my shoulder and shoved through the last of the grass. Clambering onto the first fence was easy enough. It was all wooden poles the diameter of my forearm, very earth-normal despite the deep purple varnish. Not as slippery as I'd feared. The smuggler was putting a lot of distance between us, though. I cast a look back at Moondark, doing her best, and several familiar cars still plowing through the rain far behind. Maybe one of those could jump the fence, but I wasn't about to wait and ask. The channel was almost my full body length wide. I took a deep breath and leapt for it. My hands closed on the fence, one heel dragged in the water, but my other foot hit land, and I pulled myself over onto the dirt like my life depended on it, and really, with the lightning about, it very well might have. I'd worry later about what could have happened if lightning had struck the channel with me in it. Right now, I had a bug alien to chase. With rope in hand and chainmail jingling, I got to my feet and took off across the dirt. This is more like it. Where did that spiky jerk get to? There. I had a moment to appreciate the clear line of sight before the pink and black figure dropped out of view. Swearing about trapdoors and rabbit holes, I did my best to run faster. I was swiftly getting a stitch in my side. This was more running than I was suited to, faster than the little alien behind me. Yay woo! But I had rubbish endurance compared to friends back on Earth. As I ran, the ground in front of me gradually opened up to a cliff's edge over a crater filled with blue grassland. I realized with a start that it looked like the footprint of the moon. I couldn't see the smuggler base in the middle, though, or the bug alien. That mystery was solved as I jogged to a breathless halt at the edge, where the hologram illusion faded from view. Ah, there it is. And there's old Pinky, already at the bottom. Clever bastards, all of them. I stood there for a while, catching my breath and rethinking my strategy. That was definitely pop-up construction, but the super solid kind meant for hostile environments. A bunch of square gray units all shoved together to make one big complex, with 3 taller ones along the outside. 2 of the big ones had hatches on top. Humanoid-sized doors at the ground level were scarce. Engines revved behind me. I turned just in time to see Beetle's hovercar launch over the fences with Moondark riding on the hood, mad bastard that she was. Other cars followed. "Woo!" Moondark announced when the car skidded to a stop beside me. "Where'd it go?" "New plan," I declared as Beetle got out. I pointed into the canyon. "Alien went back to base. No more out here to catch. This is too steep for you guys to climb, right?" At Moondark's nod, I continued. "Not for me. I'll sneak in the back and see if I can flush somebody out for you to catch." I handed her the rope with a flourish. It was a terrible plan. Moondark loved it, opening her beak in the widest grin her face could manage. "Stellar, we'll meet you at t'other side where Tarot is." "Hey, Beetle, let's go!" She turned to wave 3 arms and climb back onto the hood. I assumed there wasn't a free seat inside. Beetle took some convincing about the wisdom of this not wise at all somebody talk me out of it plan, but couldn't think of anything better. And as I'd pointed out, there didn't appear to be windows on this side of the building. "But surely they'll be sending people out any second now," Beetle said, while her husband ranted passionately about the audacity of these smugglers to build there. Beetle ignored him. "That one knows people are chasing, and Tinvisible flying what's-it won't stay near town forever." I shucked off my chainmail raincoat, and my own coat as well. "All the more reason for me to hurry," I said. "Look, I'll take a pile of these tumbleweed things to hide under, and they'll never see me. It's a classic plot on my planet. If I can't get one of the baddies outside somehow, I'll start a fire or something. I think I can tell which part is the warehouse I was stuck in before, and that has cutting torches." Again, nobody had any better ideas. Other cars joined up, some with the windows shot out as promised, though I didn't see any injuries. Moondark seemed pretty upbeat about her own truck. She was happy getting a ride from Beetle and Sunrise with an offhand comment that she'd barter it back later. I made a mental note to get some kind of compensation to these folks, assuming everything worked out. That part was still up in the air. "Keep an eye on this for me, will you?" I asked as I gave Beetle my coat. "If I don't make it back, it's yours to do with as you see fit." Beetle swore to care for it like the treasured off-world relic it was. The spare chainmail raincoat didn't get as much fanfare, but she put both in the car while Sunrise made sure the rest of the drivers knew the plan. I waved goodbye to my new friends as they sped off along the canyon's rim. Enjoying the sunlight and trying not to think too hard about what I'd signed myself up for, I began gathering shrubs. Luckily for me, they were easy to uproot. I'd had no idea when I suggested it earlier. They didn't even smell bad. I tossed a bunch over the edge, enough to hide behind if I crouched, and started down. I knew full well that they wouldn't do me any good against ship scanners. All I could do was gamble that the one from earlier stayed away for another couple minutes. Crossing fingers, toes, and hair in the old style, I thought. Here's hoping this actually works. I'd had worse climbs. Nothing happened other than a trade-off between rain-dampened pants and sweat-dampened underclothes. I'd had worse than that too, but it was still uncomfortable. On the plus side, the shrubs waited for me at the bottom, only having tumbled a little ways. I gathered them in my best impression of a haystack and scuttled across the open ground, ready to freeze at a moment's notice. Nothing happened. Nothing continued to happen. I really expected something to happen, but nope. My clothes dried out a little more. My footsteps on the sparse blue grass brought up cinnamon-scented memories of rabbit chasing. I caught a glimpse of dust over the far ridge. The convoy would be arriving at the front entrance soon. This is such a terrible idea. But I was committed now. Maybe I could get my hands on a paralysis gun. That was an encouraging thought. As a precaution in case of a dark interior, I closed one eye tightly to let it adjust to potential dimness. I reached a door undetected. Crouching behind my screen of shrubs, I tested the handle. It turned, quietly even. I opened it slowly, listening hard, and peeked inside with my dark-adjusted eye ready. An anticlimactic empty corridor greeted me. I left the tumbleweeds outside. They wouldn't be much camouflage indoors, and slipped into the enemy base, all senses alert for whatever I might find. This really was a dumb idea, but I'd survived every other dumb idea in my life and I didn't plan on stopping now.